Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Matt Weber. Powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Search Talk Live. I'm your host, Robert O'Haver, along with Matt Weber of Roar Internet Marketing.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
Hey, man. How's your week going?
You know, my week is going fantastic, but I'm interested in how your day was last week that you didn't want to talk about.
My birthday?
Yeah.
I don't even like to admit getting older. Yeah, I had a birthday. It went great. I did what old people do.
What do old people do on their birthday? I'm waiting to find out.
It's another day. It's the same day as every day.
All right, that gives me something to look forward to.
No, I went to dinner, had drinks, and that was it.
Nice.
Went home, slept.
Very nice. But I understand you got a pretty big gift on Saturday.
Yes. On Saturday, you guys, really exciting. Now, those of you who don't know, we've been on iHeartRadio for a while, but we've been under a different brand. We've been under the Palmer Radio Network, which is our sponsor of the show. They repurposed the station because Robert Palmer, who owns the station or the channel, purchased a professional soccer team and wanted to repurpose it for that. So when they told me last week, I was like, oh man, okay, I want to be on iHeart. So I contacted or submitted to iHeart the podcast, and less than maybe 25% of the people that submit a podcast to iHeartRadio gets approved.
Right.
On Saturday, I got notification, hey, you've been approved. And I now have our own channel on iHeartRadio under Search Talk Live, which is nice in the podcast section. So if you're in the U.S., you can listen to us if you really like Search Talk Live. We're 24/7, 7 days a week on iHeartRadio.
Much easier to find now.
Yeah.
Much easier to find.
It was very difficult before.
And think about how much our listenership is going to go up, because we were cranking some big numbers in downloads. Mm-hmm. Now with this, and it's just a couple clicks away for folks, as opposed to before, you kind of had to look for it.
Yeah. Last week we hit 50,000. We're about 150 shy of hitting 51,000. So we're getting there.
Yeah. Thank God you and I have big families.
Yeah. So today, guys, we are, actually, I don't want to skip ahead here. If it's your first time listening to the show, we are a digital marketing podcast. We talk about everything to do with digital marketing. It could be search engine optimization. We do a lot of that. Social media, paid advertising, which is our show today. Today we're going to be talking about paid social advertising and all kinds of all that stuff. But we really cover it all.
Yeah, because we've been on a really good run of search lately. Really been diving deep into search last few shows. We're going to jump into another lane right now and talk about social, and we've got a great guest.
Yeah, next week we've got, content marketing. So we're kind of switching gears here. But today our guest, all the way from California, JD Prater of AdStage. JD, how's it going?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been doing this thing called, I guess, internet digital marketing, maybe just called marketing now, for about 8 years. Got started in the nonprofit world, working internally, kind of thrown into it as most marketers get as like the new guy. It's like, hey, new guy, go figure this out. And so really fell in love with it almost immediately with that cause and effect. I do something and something happens. And then kind of worked my way into an agency and made my way over to Hennepin Marketing, a pretty good PPC agency, and was their head of paid social. And now I'm the head of acquisition here at AdStage, which is a PPC tool. So still staying within the PPC industry.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about AdStage.
Yeah, so AdStage is a cross-network reporting and automation tool. So what we're really trying to accomplish and solve for the everyday marketer is connecting you to all of that data. So you have so much data from all of your different networks, and what we're trying to enable you guys to do is visualize all of that in a way that makes sense and in a way that is trackable for your campaign from clicks down to revenue.
Nice. So it's kind of an aggregate.
Yeah, and I'm pretty excited about the show because, a lot of the people that you and I hear from are people that are either running small shops or one-man agencies. And, what do they tell us? They tell us, how do I do all this, right? I got to do search, and I got to do, now that my client wants social ads. And you can tell they got a lot of balls in the air. So if anybody is listening that feels like they got a lot of balls in the air, juggling a lot of things, today's show is really going to help.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and is it AdStage.com? Is that the website? Or
.io, because we're cool and we're in San Francisco. But we do have .com. It will redirect you.
There you go.
But yeah, you can adstage.io.
Nice. Now let's dive into it. Let's talk social ad automation.
Let's go for it, man.
Yeah, give us some sense of, for the person out there who's doing well in Google search, now wants to broaden their reach and maybe look at some more top of the funnel activities. How can social media paid automation help them?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you probably have this search person who is very analytical, probably very detail-oriented, and probably doesn't necessarily come from this automation background, meaning they really like having control. And you have this, I would say, almost this other personality, which is this social media person who loves automation, and so what I've actually seen is this like amalgamation between the two, and you're like, man, it's kind of this competing like duopoly of control versus automation. But if you're like really looking to get started, Facebook, as we all know, they are fast rising with their revenue. They are definitely killing it when we think about time and where people are spending time on their mobile phones. But they've also offered really, really good targeting. Oh, yeah. They know pretty much everything about us, and they're doing an even better job of automating all the way down to your budget, to your bid, to what ad is showing. And so there's a lot of things that I really like about that, where you can really focus on strategy and the creative side, as opposed to search, where you're really focused on structures and keywords, and really trying to serve the right ad for the right keyword for the right intent. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I time and time again, I'll go through the insights report, and I'll be like, oh my God, look at this information it's giving me, It's just, you can really drill down, you might spend, I could spend hours on a campaign just if I really wanted to, but just interests, what they watch on TV, it's,
yeah,
it's like, it's amazing.
It's overwhelming too. I mean, it's interest, it's behavioral. I mean, to freak people out that are listening, it's how many credit cards you have. Yeah. How much do you spend on those credit cards? Do you own your home? Income. What is your house composition made of? Like, they can tie all of this information together better than anyone else, because they've got you on Instagram, Messenger, Facebook, WhatsApp. They have your mobile ID. They're tying that with your credit card, and it's really powerful stuff.
Not to mention costs per click or impressions are way less than AdWords.
Yeah, and I'm actually really kind of surprised by that. I really thought I would see prices go up. I know you guys probably heard this as well, where they were going to be at max ad load capacity. Mm-hmm. And so they're trying to offload where they show ads. And I think that's something that anyone that's probably looking into Facebook, just make sure that you're looking at those, what they call placements, and that's at the ad set level. They're doing it automatically, but make sure you go in and edit those just so you can have a little bit more control. That'd be a good tip for you.
And for the listener who hasn't done that yet, that specifically means that Facebook is running ads outside of the Facebook platform because of that default setting.
Yeah, there's instant articles, there's Instagram. Instagram. I keep it messed up.
Audience network.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty crazy stuff.
So at one time you had to manually select that, right?
Yeah, you have to get it.
But now it's a default, I think.
No, it defaults at everything.
Yeah, it does.
Mobile, desktop.
You got to deselect it.
Yeah.
Whereas at one time you had to actually select it.
Yeah.
So be careful out there when you're setting up your campaign for the first time.
And you can really save a lot of money, because it's been time and time again. You see most of the users on Facebook, if you're trying to advertise just on Facebook, or on mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So your cost per click is a lot lower if you go mobile only versus desktop and mobile.
Right.
and you can just drill down, just keep going. It's fantastic.
Hey, JD, what segment of targeting in any social media platform, when we talk about those segments, and you read off a good list of them, what do you think some of the most underutilized targeting segments that small businesses can take advantage of?
It's a really good question. So this might be a little bit contrarian, and I know that there's somewhat of a rift between people on this one, but I'll say it and then we can get into the actual debate of it. But I think what I would take advantage of are Facebook audiences. So these are not your website audiences. Mm-hmm. They really have launched all of these new types of audiences to where you can create audiences based on people that have interacted with your post. You can create an audience of people who have interacted with your event or with your certain type of ad. And so they're really, video views is another big one. They're really allowing you to build this audience and own an audience on Facebook. Now, there are people out there maybe like Moz. I think Moz would be like, no, let's own the traffic on our website because we don't know what's going to happen with Facebook, in a year, 2 years from now. But you got people like HubSpot, and HubSpot's like, yeah, I don't really care. I'm going to the audience. I'm going to make it as frictionless as possible. So that would be something that I would say take advantage of, is start creating those audiences.
That's very interesting. Now, we've got folks listening to the show that have had success with Google Search, AdWords. How can they leverage what they've learned in AdWords to be successful in paid social advertising?
For paid social, I would say carry over your campaign structure. So there's something with social people, like they don't build out, in my opinion, great campaign structures. They get a little bit lazy with their naming conventions specifically. So make sure that you're carrying over a really good campaign structure and really start to build, I call them like micro funnels. Build a funnel on Facebook. So have maybe your video views or driving to content and then remarketing back with another type of message. So if you're very familiar with AdWords, you're doing search, you're probably doing remarketing, do the same thing, but you're doing it all within Facebook's kind of native newsfeed and or like their audience network around that as well. So I do think it's really important that you are kind of nurturing people down the funnel, because within social, you are going to people, where on search, they're coming to you. And that's really the big kind of push-pull difference between the two.
Yeah, one thing I do see that's really underutilized when it comes to Facebook advertising, or even AdWords at this point, but lookalike audiences. If you've done a really good job of targeting your people and your ads are real successful, utilizing those lookalike audiences.
You need a good volume, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to get some weird results if you've got 100 or 150 people in your core audience.
Sure.
And then either one of those platforms is extrapolating what those characteristics are. You need a larger body. Mm-hmm.
And then drill down and tighten it up as you go.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you guys. I think it's a really good foundation. If you have enough user data that you can upload into there, and they're making it super easy now with the lookalike audiences. They just released their value-based lookalike audience. So if you not only have the customer information or maybe their email, you can also tie it into like revenue or lifetime value from that person and say, go find more people like these guys, that are high revenue people. So it's even another step further.
Hey, another thing that you can target, what I saw on Facebook I've actually been using it probably for a couple months now, but people that are more likely to click on an ad, you can target those people. It's like, come on. It's like,
well, yeah, that's a great audience, because I'm sure Facebook knows that some people are just consuming content and they're not engaging. Even if they meet your demographic profile, they're not going to engage. And then other people are the people that are posting and clicking and sharing, and those are the people more likely to engage.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is if you're like a blogger or something and you're wanting to get your information out, your content out to people, if you're doing posts on Facebook and you're promoting or boosting those posts, the cost per click can be as little as like 3 cents a click.
Right.
And you're getting tons of eyes on your content.
Right.
It's huge.
Well, in fact, on that, let's talk a little bit about the creative for these social ads, because the people that are jumping from Google paid search, where they weren't really creatively challenged, just doing text ads, now they get into this new realm of paid social ads. JD, what's some advice you can give people on the visual creative side of the ads used in paid social media?
Yeah, this is probably where I spend 80% of my time. It's rare that we've all just talked, right? We talked about all of our audiences. We talked about, and we can get it pretty good. And we know who our audience is. I think your audience with SEOs and content, search people, they probably have a really good idea. But it's, how do I engage with that audience now? And that's like just another step further. So I tend to spend a lot of time on the creative aspect of my image, my headline, getting the right type of ad copy. And so what I really try to focus on and really think about is putting myself in their place and what's going to stop my thumb. So I'm scrolling through, what's going to make me go, I need to stop and see that. I'm not saying clickbait, but I am saying making sure that I have a great headline that stands out, and that I have an image that conveys the problem. I found that to be really, really as a good little tip. So an example, let's say, are you tired? And you used a picture of a dead cell phone battery, right? Like it has that connotation of I'm tired, and it kind of portrays that visually without having to say it. And I think that's kind of a really good tactic if you guys can tap into that.
So if you had a choice, Robert, I'll ask for you as well, between having an ad that has a great headline, killer headline, best of headline capabilities, or an ad that had the best visual, you can only choose one of those.
I'd go visual. You
go visual? JD?
Yeah, I'd go visual. I mean, look how much bigger that image is than the headline in the newsfeed.
There's a lot of times, and this goes back from my days of doing YouTube videos, but anytime you have an image, most of the time the people will look at the image versus the title. But that's like the secondary.
You can win with a great image
yes.
and a poor headline, but you can't win with a great headline and a poor image.
Correct.
Right. And that's a shift for people who are making this transition from search marketing over into paid social media. They got to think about the visual portion of it.
That's probably the hardest part, wouldn't you say?
It is. It's so hard. And I think, again, we're going to get into this different types of people. And I see this more and more with, I came from a search background, really loved social. And it was for me, it was mostly because it was new and shiny. And that's one thing I really loved about social. But then you kind of get to tap into this creative part of your brain. And a lot of search people are just really analytical. And they have a hard time tapping into that side. I'm not saying all of them do, but have you ever been to like a PPC conference and then go to like a social media conference? They're very different people. I've attended both, and you're like, oh, you guys are very different.
They stay in their own clique there, you know.
I think the social media people are better dressed.
Yeah, they're a little bit more bubbly, a little bit more, I'd say bigger personalities. But I also think the social media manager is now becoming the paid social person, where a year ago they didn't maybe have to do that, but now it really is pay to play. And if you're going to be on there, you got to know how to do it. And I think we saw that whenever like Hootsuite bought Ad Espresso as an example of earlier this year.
Yeah, I think you may have shocked some people listening to the show, because I still meet people who are cranking out their social media, once a day. And I ask them, I say, how many people do you think you're reaching? And they really don't know. They think that their organic reach, there's still people who assume if I've got 1,000 followers and I do a post, I'm reaching 1,000 people.
Not at all.
Not at all. But it is become a paid to play. And you're right. There's an interesting organizational shift going on now, that social media person who was in their former life probably a graphic designer, potentially a writer, is now having to take on these capabilities of media buying and starting to do that analysis. Sure. And I can, even as an agency, we're struggling just a little bit with finding out where do those responsibilities fall in relationship to the paid person and to because because somebody's got to be really good at doing the analysis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it also means we've got to bring up another one of those words, attribution modeling. Because now as you're doing cross-channel, just because you don't see a conversion show up in these days doesn't mean that your campaign was a failure. JD, what should people look for to judge the success of their paid social advertising?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, this is a whole episode. We could spend a lot of time on this, but I think there's a couple of things that you got to watch out for. And so we can run through a couple of things that I've seen people mess up on as a good way. So make sure that your Facebook pixel is set up correctly and is firing correctly. If it is, then Facebook conversions should be pretty accurate and pretty close to what you're seeing in Google Analytics if you're using those UTM parameters. So make sure that your ads are tracked, with campaign source, campaign medium. That part's going to be really beneficial as well. So you can kind of get at least a pulse on what you're seeing in Facebook. Check it within Google Analytics. Just remember, Analytics by default is a last non-direct click, and that's going to be really important whenever you're going to, setting it up. But if those two things are good to go and you're looking through and you're still having some issues, go into your Google Analytics and just kind of like at the very bottom left, it'll say conversions. Open that up. It'll say like multi-channel, like attribution, kind of go in there and then just kind of play around with first click, last click, set up some different styles of linear types of modeling and really kind of get into it and analyze it, because what you may end up finding is that Facebook was driving a lot of first click attribution, but then Google was getting the last click attribution. And I see this constantly, even within our own advertising. And so it's difficult, it's tricky. Also, my last caveat is know that Google Analytics is not cross-device. You're a different person on mobile as you are on desktop, but with Facebook, you're the same person. They know who you are on desktop. They know who you are on mobile. So I actually tend to favor Facebook as long as that pixel's firing correctly.
How is that done, though? I mean, it's a different IP. It's
they are basing it off of your app ID. So your Facebook ID, your app ID, and your desktop, I mean, it's all tied together. So that's where Facebook is actually better than probably anyone as far as cross-device, cross-network tracking.
I think we got to break this down into little pieces for some of the listeners.
Sorry.
And, So, JD, I think
one
for you, if you could kind of real world it, like give a real world situation of how the attribution is happening from someone who sees an ad in one place but then actually takes the action, kind of give us a real world scenario. And Robert, at the end, maybe you can jump in and say, where do you go and get that data that he just spoke of in analytics?
Gotcha. So here's a very common thing. Probably all of us, if we opened up our mobile app right now, if we opened up Facebook, we're going to see an ad. And let's just say we clicked on that ad, and let's just say it was to a blog, for example, right? But within that blog, we consumed it. We thought it was really good. At the bottom of that blog, let's say there was a download a white paper as their kind of call to action at the bottom there. And we didn't download it. We went back into Facebook. We kept scrolling. We saw our crazy aunts taking quizzes. We saw our friends, having a nice dinner. And then later on, we were talking with our coworker, and this topic got brought up. You're like, oh wait, there is that that white paper. And now you go and you search, but you couldn't maybe remember, and you're going to search in Google, and now you're clicking on a Google ad. Well, what would end up happening in Google Analytics is Google would get the credit for that conversion, even though Facebook really started the process. Does that make sense for you guys?
absolutely.
Totally.
And JD,
Cool.
where do you go to get that information?
Yeah. Yeah.
Throw it back on the guest, huh?
Yeah. I mean, so it's a little bit tricky. If your Facebook is your pixel, and let's say you have a conversion set up for that white paper download, it would get credit to the campaign that brought it. So they have what's called last click or view through conversion on Facebook. You can mess with those defaults. Now, Google Analytics, so this is like your website tracking. I came to your website, and what you're going to be able to go into there is that attribution report. Again, bottom left-hand side, you're going to see conversions, open up conversions. You'll see like multi-channel attribution. Click on that, and then you can go in and see how the path that people were taking as they interacted before that actual conversion. And it's a really cool report. Definitely analyze it. I can't say one is the real source of truth. I know a lot of people want to use analytics, last click as the source of truth. But as we all know, as customers, even last click just isn't even really true anymore as far as our journey of how we find stuff and consume.
Well, let me ask you this for the listeners. Let's say I click on a Google AdWords ad. I go to your website. I leave. I go to Facebook. I see another ad. And I come back, and then I do a conversion. Does that attribution give you those steps as well?
This is even trickier. So if you were using AdWords conversion, so they actually do first click.
Yeah.
So AdWords would take credit for that.
Okay.
Facebook would take credit for that. And then Google Analytics would give credit to Facebook.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is great stuff, though, because I think for people who are running these campaigns, you've got to be very careful of turning something off that initially doesn't look like at a surface level it's bringing value. So you have to understand the complexity of today's digital media user.
Correct. Yeah. And I would recommend one thing, just to throw that in Google AdWords, add these columns. Assisted click conversions, assisted impression conversions, whenever you're going to analyze keywords specifically.
I was just going to mention that.
So yeah, those are really good ones.
So tell folks what that means specifically.
Yeah, so we just basically said an assist. So in Robert's example, he said, I clicked on Google, I came in through Facebook. Google would get an assist. This is like your point guard, right? This is your Steph Curry throwing up an alley-oop to Kevin Durant, right? Kevin Durant scored. That is correct, but he wouldn't have scored without Curry, passing him the ball. And so that is equally as important and something that we need to take into consideration before we pause certain elements, like of a keyword, an ad set, or a campaign. And so that would be a click assist. Impression assist is the person saw the ad in the Serps. So they did the search result. They saw it. They may not have actually clicked on it. Maybe they went to your organic, but it was just saying this was served and they saw it. We can get into, did they actually see it? That'll be another conversation.
But that's I'm glad that was a great analogy, by the way. That's so important, not only for, it could be different ad copy on AdWords versus Facebook. If that last attribution gave you that conversion, you can measure those to, better seeing the messaging for each ad.
Yeah, ultimately you're trying to figure out what was the button, that really triggered somebody. And I thought it was great, JD, that you pointed out that, and I think this is true, that an assisted impression can only occur if an action occurs on the SERP, like you click on a local listing or you click on an organic. If you don't do anything on the SERP, I don't think they can record an assisted impression.
Correct.
Yeah, that's huge. All right, guys, it's time for a break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Search Talk Live is sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. Check out robertpalmercompanies.com for more information.
Find the true value of your home when you log on. homevalue.com.
Get your questions in on Twitter. Type hashtag Search Talk Live and your question. Now back to the show.
Yeah, those of you just tuning in, we are talking with JD Prater. I keep messing up. Prater. I'm a name butcherer. With AdStage, and we're talking paid social advertising. Now, the next thing I want to bring up, you don't hear people talking a lot about, and I wanted to get your opinion why, when it comes to like Twitter. I knew that was kind of this little snicker.
Man. if you would ask me 2 years ago, like I love Twitter. So I think you guys, myself, like we are on Twitter. We use Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it might be a little bit generational as well. And I also think you could probably throw in marketers, techie people. They just really struggle. Like, I don't know what their deal is with innovation. And I think it's just not that they're not innovating. It's just not as fast. Like Facebook, Think about Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. It's like every week. Like, we could just have a podcast that just talks about updates that they made. Let me know if you guys are interested. But, it's crazy. I really like Twitter. It's also just really noisy. And think about the time that you're spending on it. So you're talking to someone who checks Twitter. I don't know. I probably check it every hour. I don't know. I'm pretty addicted to it. I'll admit it. But I'm not really looking for ads. I'm not really clicking on ads.
Yeah.
I'll screenshot some good ones just for inspiration, but I'm not running them as much as I was 2 years ago.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. I've got to say that if Twitter cannot turn a business generating model between now and the next 18 months, when they have the amount of publicity that they're getting in today's world, they're never going to. Because has there ever been a president that is more aligned with a brand ever in the history of the United States?
Yeah.
Never. Right?
Twitter's got to love it.
Right. I mean, think about it, just realistic. How many times do you hear the word Twitter in the news in a day?
Yeah.
Never happened before. It's never going to happen again. And so if they can't make this work, it's not going to happen.
It's just so much a way of, people are checking their news. They're going to the news on Twitter before they go on their TV to watch it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. So is he helping the brand or is he hurting the brand?
I would say it's probably increased users, but they've got to get their act together. I mean, they're having trouble right now.
Yeah.
Disney was on the table to buy them, but there was too many, adult stuff and all that stuff happening, and they didn't want a part of it.
Name another brand that's ever been associated with a president of the United States ever. Maybe Boeing with the airplane, maybe. Maybe some fashion designers with the first lady, but there's no connection to any brand to a past president in the history of our country.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point.
I think the biggest problem they have, they're targeting so-so, but if their tweets were categorized somehow, then you could focus and target better. You just really can't.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's I love Twitter too, but it is information overload sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I'm reluctant to unfollow people more on Twitter than I am on Facebook. I got to get over that. I don't know why that is.
The other thing, too, is I don't understand is they got that whole right side on Twitter. They're not doing anything with, unless you're looking at news or something, or sponsored people paying to get tweets or get followers. But so much unused real estate there.
Yeah.
Instead of throwing it in the feed where it's lost in seconds, I just don't understand. But sorry to go on a tangent about Twitter. But.
Hey, JD, I know we're talking social media ads, but I know you're a big AdWords guy too, and I also know you're a coffee roaster, which is kind of interesting. But let's talk AdWords. Just want to get your take really quickly. What's your sense of the new interface, and what is Google trying to give to marketers with this new interface?
Yeah, first take is, man, it's a lot of change. So I was lucky enough to be part of a beta that got it back in February. I didn't last very long, again, being a laggard, slow to change. I was like, it's too much. I can't do it. And so I reverted back. But it's eventually going to become the default now. It's been almost 6 months. And so I think a few things that Google is trying to do is really make it more visual. And I really like that. Yeah. That part I really give them a pat on the back for, because again, the search people, it's so much data, and you can break it down, you can analyze it, you can splice it in so many different ways. And what they have done is really said, well, hey, look at this. We're going to just visualize it. I'll give you an example. They have this hour of day by week. So it's this really cool heat map Well, before we used to go in, have to download that, put it in Excel, pivot it, and then make a conditional formatting into.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, it's right here. Look at this. Like I get the answer that I need much quicker, and I think that's what they're going for within the new UI. And I really like that part of it. Is the visual aspects of being able to see my data and know how to maybe draw a conclusion quicker.
Yeah, which platform is easiest for you to analyze of all the platforms that you use?
This sounds wrong, but I really like Facebook. I really think they do a great job. Now, again, I would say Facebook power users, people that are in it every day, can relate to what I'm saying. If you're coming from AdWords, you're like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Facebook sucks. Their UI is terrible. I don't get it. But there are a lot of elements that AdWords copied from Facebook that, in my opinion, are very blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
But I think where Facebook wins is the flow of creation and management. And I think that's where they win.
Now, if we can get AdWords to take on the insights, it would be great.
Yeah.
That really has been the AdWords game plan. If you think about it, right? They've let third parties invent things. They've let other platforms do it, and they watch it, and they say, that's a good idea. And then they build it into it. I mean, think about 5 years ago, the third-party tools that were available to do the things that you can now do inside AdWords.
Yeah.
They're genius at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I find myself switching back and forth. I like the new platform, but there's things I can't find. So I'll flip back. So
when you're in a hurry.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm in a hurry. I got to find this. I know where it is. I'm flipping back and you get it. Hey, JD, I've got a crazy thing that I read online. It was a really interesting article, and it was talking about how people consume Facebook now in the same way that they consume traditional media, meaning that there are times of the day when they want light content, and there are times of the day when they want content that they have to think about. So it was trying to make the case, and I thought the research was a little weak, but the theory was interesting in that in the beginning of the day, people are skimming and they're looking for social interactions, people that they're familiar with, but they're less likely to stop on unknown things that are introduced in their feed, things that they have to think about. During lunch, they're more likely to engage with sponsored posts, news articles, etc. When they get home, they're back to skimming, but right before they go to bed, they're more likely to engage with unknown things. And they're drawing the parallel between television. Certain times you want to watch comedy, certain times you want to watch the news, certain times you want to watch a drama. And so what's your thought on that? Do you see these patterns in how people engage with content on Facebook?
Wow. I mean, I haven't ever actually thought about it. And so this is my first time kind of hearing it and thinking through it. And I know I'm an audience of one here, but I can kind of relate to that. I might be in the morning, maybe I am more aspirational, what's going to get me going for today, right? What do I need to know? It's probably like your morning talk shows, right? Where you're just rounding up headlines.
Right.
Is what I need. So for me, being West Coast time, I'm always 3 hours behind you guys. And so I'm always trying to play catch up, like, what did I miss? And so that's what I'm doing in the morning. But it really, really interesting with that idea of how people consume and when should I be doing certain types of advertising. I really like the premise behind it. What do you guys think?
Well, the author was making the case that the average person in the United States is eligible to get over 1,700 pieces of content in their newsfeed from Facebook per day. The average person can't process that amount of stuff. So in addition to the Facebook algorithm that's filtering it and controlling it, and we've developed our own intuitive way of filtering the content. And Facebook is now getting in tune with the decisions you make and putting that into the algorithm. So, and it's also by device. So they're going to show you different stuff on your device, on your phone, then on your iPad, and then on your desktop.
I mean, that's machine learning at its best.
Really is.
We might be scared of this word, but that's really impressive. I mean, even going back to what you guys were talking about earlier in the show, Facebook knows if you're more likely to watch a video, click on a link, or convert. Like you take that and then you factor that into time of day. I mean, wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, and this is why paid social ads, if it's not on your radar, probably needs to get closer on your radar because of how much Facebook knows about the average consumer and what their proclivities are. Now, Google holds the ultimate trump card, right? I mean, the person on search has raised their hand and said, I want what you have. That's worth a lot. But when you start thinking about, through a podcast like this, all the things that Facebook knows about you, that difference in value starts to diminish a little bit. So because you can weed out the waste pretty quickly in Facebook.
Sure.
Yeah, and maybe even influence people to raise their hand.
Right. Creating the desire. Yeah.
100%. I mean, and that's just like Facebook. I mean, we haven't, throw in LinkedIn, throw in Pinterest, throw in, I guess, Quora, if you want to talk about Quora. But I don't know if they're exactly social, but, still, like there's so many other ways of getting in front of people to kind of drum up that interest in front of the right type of people. I think that's the one thing that we make sure that I want your audience to hear is like, you control who sees that. And I think that's really the power of social.
That's key, knowing your audience. I mean, knowing who your customers are, that type of thing. I mean, and it does take a special mindset to do what we do, is in the sense where you don't think on your level, like, what do I like and what do I think? You're thinking for the masses.
Well, I know one of the things you do well, Robert, is you use Facebook to really empirically decode who the audience is.
Correct.
I mean, you're going in with some assumptions, but by the time you're done your Facebook campaign, you've drilled down and now you've got a crystal clear picture of who it is. So you kind of reverse engineer it off of your Facebook results.
Yeah, and that still takes tweaking afterwards, but I mean, I get a good sense of it.
Yep.
To start. So.
I want to talk about one of the other characteristics we have as consumer, and that's where we live or where we work, which is starting to show up in a lot of this data, and how much we favor the things that we're looking for that are nearest to us. And you see it in Google with searches that include the phrase near me. You see people use hyper-local geographies. I mean, geographical units that aren't even really geographical units. They're neighborhoods. They're boroughs on that. And JD, what's your sense of how that plays into how people use Google? Have you, for example, on Google or in Facebook, tested ads that are hyper-local, hyper-local, so that you're returning the name of the geographic unit that they're in so that you get a higher click-through rate?
Yeah, I've done some testing around this specifically. So I used to work with a popular weather app. I'll leave it at that. But we did a lot of testing around Facebook around storms, so a big storm, maybe a big hurricane, and calling it out and really targeting the areas that might be most affected by it with very, hyper local, I would consider hyper local types of content that were created by their team. And our job was really to make sure that the people that saw them, that they wanted to see it, saw it, because it was really like safety information. It was really kind of important to kind of see. Yeah. And then, we also did some testing around this as well with some Google ads, using dynamic keyword insertions, or DKI for those listening. Within the headline, you can have it match the search query. And so that's one thing that we've tested. And then Google's also released this really cool, what do they call it? Like if function within your text ads, which are really pretty interesting when you think about a mobile device saying something else, right? So maybe if I'm on mobile, maybe my intent is a now and immediacy. So I could say hyperlocal text ad. If they're on mobile, show them my phone number, for example. Call me right now, right? Mm-hmm. So there are definitely some ways to think about that. And again, it's being aware of what's out there and then test some more, because there is some really cool opportunities out there for you guys to get hyperlocal.
Yeah. You left out one test. No, I'm just kidding.
And you know who you can follow that does a little bit of the testing for you? The spammers, the bad guys, right? I mean, watch the ads on the internet, and they're really good at the geographic technique. People in fill in the name of the city are disrupting the internet with this technique.
Yeah.
Okay, so why are they doing that? Because they know that it generates a higher click-through rate on that. So that hyper-local, that showing an ad that really reflects they are where you are, has a huge effect sometimes.
Absolutely. Hey, the other people that do it good are the people who do the native ads. Where it looks like an article, but you're actually being pulled down into the funnel to purchase a dietary product or whatever it may be.
Yes. Yeah, they masquerade as a brand that looks legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always the people that are like skimming, like skimming for pennies. It's almost like they're just scraping the underbelly of the internet, and they're going to do it anyway. Then they're going to figure it out, and more like props to them, because they're like willing to test something to see if it's going to work rather than kind of writing it off. So I think fantastic point to say, look at what they're doing. They're
very ROI driven, and I'm not advocating anybody copy the bad guys, but I'm just saying watch their techniques. Because if you see a bad guy doing a technique, there's a pretty good chance that it's having some degree of success. And I remember back in the day when we would do television advertising, I would always tell people, watch those ads at 1 a.m. carefully. Because if you see them over and over again, they're working. Yeah. So they've got a technique, they've got language, they've got something in there that's resonating with that viewer. So use that as a case study.
And that's one thing we do as marketers constantly. You'll find something like, oh, that's a great idea. Or that's.
Yep. Oh, the radar's always on to see what's working and what's not working.
Absolutely.
I like that. That's a really good tip. I'm going to start paying more attention to that one. I like that one. I like that
stay
one
up till 1 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know if I can do that. I'm an old man. I like to go to bed early. I'm an early riser.
Now, the other thing I want to talk about too is demographics. Huge importance. I mean, obviously, if you're a local business, you want to stay local with your ads, but when it depends on platform, like for instance, Instagram, you're going to skew more 18 to 35 or even lower than that probably. Where Facebook, you're pretty much a la carte as far as age bracket. Twitter, I'm not sure on that one because I don't advertise on Twitter. Right. But, it's just know your audience. I mean, I guess that's my point. Know your customer, know what your goal, your strategy is, and who you're trying to target.
Yeah, and I think each medium, too, has and certainly there's exceptions to every rule, right, which is marketing lesson number 101. There's exception to every axiom. But each of those mediums tends to vary a little bit in engagement. I think the average Twitter user is like JD, skimming, right, breezing through, finding out what's going on that, rarely stops at something. Instagram, though, seems to be a pensive, thoughtful, engaging medium where people don't cruise through it under the pressure of time.
Yeah.
Like, I think people that use Twitter use it under the pressure of time. I think people who use Facebook sometimes use it under the pressure of time. I don't think the same is true with Instagram. I don't think they feel that I got to get through this in the next 2.5 minutes while I'm walking to the car.
I think it's very fair. That's one thing I love about traveling. I love watching other people use social media. Sometimes you get like behind like an 18-year-old girl and you're like, whoa, you just went through like 5 different networks and just like going back and forth. It was, I remember one time I was at the Indianapolis airport and this girl was like on Snapchat, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, going all back and forth while still texting her friends. And I was like, whoa, you are you're on a different level than I am.
You see that when you're driving sometimes too.
That's oh my gosh.
Oh geez. Oh man. Oh, that's scary. That's scary. But no, I think one tip I will say, if you're trying to determine if your audience is on this network, so take those customers. We just talked about this with Facebook. We talked about uploading them into Facebook. Yeah. Every network now has this available. So you can do this in LinkedIn. You can do this in Pinterest. You can do this in Twitter. And you can understand if your audience is on this network by looking at like an audience match rate. Like we were, I'll give you an example. We were surprised here at AdStage when we uploaded our list that like 40% of our audience was actually found on Pinterest. We were like, what? maybe we need to build out a Pinterest strategy of how we can position our content.
Yeah, and another great reason for keeping your customer list clean and doing good hygiene on your customer list, because it's now got a value way outside of email on all of these platforms. And we talked a little bit before the show started, JD, about segmenting that customer list into high value, medium value, and low value as well. Yeah.
That's a great strategy, because not all of them have that Facebook LTV, value-based monetization, I guess, aspect of the list. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is where we're seeing this interplay of like content with the email team, with your like social team, with maybe your advertising team, and you have to be working together across departmental or even across, different people's jobs. And this might be just your job as someone, but I would definitely encourage you to start working together with other teams if you're not, because this information is super valuable.
Well, we got to bring this a little bit home, because there's somebody listening right now who's going, yeah, right, I'm a one-man guy. How do I do all this by myself? What tips can we give people who want to experiment with these things, but they are limited in 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, or like us, 14 hours a day?
Yeah, exactly. Start just with what you know, man. Like, just start with what's working and then slowly branch out. Like, you don't have to be on every single network. And my first one I would test is Facebook. They have the biggest audience and the best targeting and probably the cheapest cost. So as far as what is available and what you can do, start with Facebook and then maybe branch out from there. That would be where I would start.
Okay.
So that's good advice.
And how about being able to, ready for Believe It or Leave It?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, it is time for our segment, Believe It or Leave It. JD, are you ready?
Oh, man. Okay, let's do it.
We're going to give you 3 statements that, yes, we did find on the internet, and we are going to ask you to react to them by telling our audience whether they should believe it or whether they should leave it.
I don't know. If they're on the internet, it must be true.
It must be true, yeah.
It must be true. That's right.
All right, here's number 1. We will soon see a new social media platform that only uses emojis.
Oh, man.
What would you call that?
I'm going to say believe it, because I live in Silicon Valley. Surely that's got to be for real.
Yeah, our communication keeps getting reduced and reduced and reduced to its lowest basic elements.
Yeah. All right. Number 2. Home devices like Google Home and Alexa will be the ultimate retargeting tool and will offer a daily synopsis of deals on products and services you are interested in at the start of each day.
Oh, man, that sounds awesome.
It does, right?
Awesome as an advertiser, maybe not as a consumer. Man.
I tell you what they need is they need the audio. Like if it's listening in and you say, man, I need dog food. And then all of a sudden, bam, there's an ad for dog food.
I'm going to say believe it.
I'm with you. And I think if anybody's going to be first in this, it's got to be Alexa, right? Mm-hmm. Because Alexa knows you've been to Amazon. Alexa knows you've looked at the paper towels. And if the price dropped, why wouldn't he tell you? Why wouldn't Alexa tell you every morning, by the way, the price just dropped on the paper towels you were looking at?
Yeah. Or you've ordered your dog food from there before, and you say, man, I need more dog food. And it goes, would you like me to order that for you? It's
right.
Like, damn, okay.
Yeah. Or like even like machine learning. I know the last time you bought this, you probably used it up. By now it's time to reorder.
Exactly.
That could be cool.
I'm with you, JD. I believe that one. I believe that you're going to say, good morning, Alexa. And Alexa's going to say, here are the best deals for you today. Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
You're low on sugar. Call the neighbor. No,
yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
All right, last one. You're doing great. Believe it or leave it. Twitter will launch a sponsored tweet platform where they will be the middleman between advertisers and people with large followings.
Wow. That's a really good idea. I don't think Twitter will do it.
Why not? It's AdSense for Twitter.
Yeah, I know. And it's even like influencer marketing. I just don't think they're going to do, I mean, I think they should do it. And I think it'd be a great idea. I just don't see it. I don't see them doing it. I guess that's where I want it to happen, but I don't see them doing it.
So you say leave it.
I say leave it.
Robert, what's your take?
I have to agree.
Okay, I'm going to go on the other side. I'm going to say believe it.
Okay.
I think they've got to figure out a way to monetize it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I also think they're getting some pressure on people not disclosing whether they're doing sponsored tweets or not sponsored tweets. I think they're getting pressure from that, which is affecting the integrity of the medium. How do they clean it up? They become the middleman. And they say, hey, listen, Robert, you've got a huge following. I'm going to help you monetize it, but I'm going to be the clearinghouse.
Kind of like a DSP.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, yeah. Great stuff. Good stuff to think about, JD. Great comments.
Yeah, man. So what's the tattoo?
Yeah, JD, we've got to ask you for your Search Talk Live tattoo. The best, most powerful, succinct piece of advice you can give people who are listening.
Not relationship, just like, advertising.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to say optimize for revenue.
That's a pretty safe tattoo.
Yeah. You're going way out on a limb on that one, huh?
I'm going to say, I think too many times we're optimizing for leads or we're optimizing for clicks. And I think we've got to get it full funnel tracking in place. We've got to get our attribution going. We got to get marketing and sales talking closer together. Pretty much all of these hurdles have to be eventually broken down. But as marketers, we just need to be really focused on revenue. And as the CEOs are kind of holding us more to it.
Actually, I think that's great advice.
Yeah,
it is. And in my own experience, being an agency, some clients don't want you to know how much money they're making.
Yeah.
So they don't want to give you the transactional revenue to put back into the math. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit short-sighted on them when you look at all the information that's available now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was really great advice what you were talking about with the attribution and the assists. I think that was good information to be given to people.
Yeah, man. This has been some really good take notes shows.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There are some companies out there that are working to solve this. So, I mean, I will say, if you're listening and you've got like a $20K plus budget for a year, check out Visible, check out Bright Funnel, because they are really trying to solve this offline, online marketing attribution. And it's a really pretty impressive platforms.
Nice. That would be fantastic if you could track. Well, there is ways, but I mean, offline, online stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, TV commercial versus,
right.
But anyway, well, we are out of time.
It's been a great show.
Yeah, JD, I really appreciate you being on the show and sharing your knowledge with our client or with our listeners.
Our clients too. Hopefully they're listening.
Our listeners are our clients.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys for the wonderful conversation and for the amazing questions. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, it's been great, and thank you very much.
Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah. So, guys, next week we are off. We will not have a show. Our engineer is off on another expedition. But we will be back the following week, and if you catch it, it'll give you time to get caught up on previous episodes. Go to searchtalklive.com, sign up for the newsletter. It'll give us all our up-and-coming guests and other information. And Matt, you want to add something to it?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people do know the next show, when it comes out 2 weeks from now, is about reputation management. Topic that we have not talked about in a while.
Yeah, that's huge. Guys, thanks again for your support, listening to the show, and let's go for 100,000 now.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the week.
Bye-bye.
Search Talk Live is sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
Find the true value of your home when you log on. HomeValue.com.
If you have questions for Search Talk Live, or you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor of the show, email Robert at searchtalklive.com. That's searchtalklive.com.